Welcome back to Access. I'm Ken.
I'm Nicole.
And today we're talking about Hosea. We were just talking about unfortunate names for children, which happens a lot in the book of Hosea. We were just talking about kind of kids in the Bible in general, and they get symbolic names that mean stuff, and it's not very nice most of the time.
It's usually something kind of horrible. Like,
there was like a manual, God with us.
Right.
Like every once in a while you get a nice.
But is anyone actually called a manual, or is it like?
What is Hezekiah?
Oh yeah.
But in Hosea it's more things like.
It's lo ami, you are not my people.
Hey you, not my people.
Yeah.
Come here.
And she's the youngest anyway, so probably doesn't feel good.
It's kind of
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about Hosea, the history of it. Hosea is an 8th century prophet, so we are going kind of back in time, back to the original Isaiah, back to when there's a southern kingdom and a northern kingdom, and Hosea is one of the rare prophets in the books that is actually preaching to the northern kingdom, to Israel, that he'll often call Ephraim, and let's see, what to say. 8th century, we actually know quite a bit archaeologically. We'll pull the archaeology card out this time. What they've done is they've gone back and they've dug out all these different layers, and what they've discovered is this enormous amount of iniquity. Or inequity, rather. How do you find evidence of iniquity?
Like about a whole mound of sin.
Put it back! Put it back! Dig, cover it over.
You uncovered hell? Like...
Put the lid back! I'm verklempt. No, inequity. So they had really, really, really big houses, and then there'd be really, really, really tiny little houses. And so what we see is a huge division between the wealthy haves and then the have-nots. And this is part of what Hosea and the other 8th century prophets are so upset about. It's not so much that it's not okay to have things and to be blessed by that. But there's the sense of people having things at the expense of the poor.
That's exploitation.
We're going to see more of that later with some of the other prophets. Hosea is mostly concerned with fidelity to the faith, for faithfulness to the religion. And as we talked before, can be a little bit tricky when we talk about other religious traditions, because it can start to sound exclusionistic and all of that. Again, my sense would be when Israel is talking about the dark side of these other religious traditions, it's more for the abuse of particularly women and children that took place in those, almost more than anything else. And Hosea is an excellent book to talk about that, because the main theme or trope, if you will, in the book is this relationship, this marriage with a temple prostitute named Gomer. Some people just sort of think she's just a prostitute, but commentators say, no, it's this role called a temple prostitute. And what would occur in some of these religions is a human being would be sold as kind of a slave, a sexual slave, and then people would go to worship, and worship would look like plunking down some cash and having sex with the temple prostitutes. Often, young boys, women sold into slavery, which, on the one hand you think, hey, there's a great way to get people to go to worship. I'm kidding.
You'd probably make more money.
But, the reality of this is what a abusive and awful, practice. And then, so the sense is that you have in Hosea is this is a metaphor for actually God's relationship with Israel. That Israel is kind of playing, whoever will benefit Israel in the short run, that is who Israel is going to turn to. So there's this sort of, we like religion when it benefits us, and we're just going to let it go when when it doesn't.
Yeah, we'll just move on to the next news thing.
Yeah, whatever is, entertaining and fun, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So it's important to know that context of temple prostitution there, which I think lays the groundwork for...
Very much so.
Yeah, for some of that. What do you think for themes? What else do you hear?
Well, for themes, I was just going to look at the different metaphors that Hosea casts the idea of covenant in. So Hosea's...
Covenant again, I see.
Yes. Hosea is earlier than Isaiah and Jeremiah, who we looked at, I guess, a couple weeks ago. And they were, and at least Jeremiah was using that marriage metaphor. But Hosea is actually the first one to use it, even though in the books it comes after. But chronologically it comes before. And so the first 3 chapters, you have this relationship of Hosea and Gomer. And like Ken was saying, God commands Hosea to go and take Gomer, who is already a temple prostitute, and to be married to her. And while he stays faithful, she keeps turning back to kind of her old ways. And that is a metaphor for the covenant between God and Israel, where God stays faithful and trying to bring them back. But Israel is acts like a whore. Like, that's the language. The word whore is like every other word in the first 2 chapters.
This is boy, when we did this with a group last year, this was one of the least favorite books. Because the language is painful.
Well, yeah, it's like whore, stop your whoredom.
Yeah.
It's
an in-your-face.
It's rough on the ears.
It is rough on the ears. Yeah.
But you really get kind of the pain of it, and then there's this issue of children in there, and the naming of the kids. The last one is named, like, each one has a terrible, like, predictive name of, like, Jezreel, like, this is where you're going to be defeated. And the middle one, I forget what the middle one's name, like Lo Rahama. And then there's Lo Ami, which is You Are Not My People, which is a reversal of everything we've heard before of covenant, where, like, kind of to sum up covenant in a sentence is, like, I am your God and you are my people. And so for the child to be called You Are Not My People, it's kind of like that. The covenant has been broken. By your prostitute ways. And then the second imagery for covenant, which actually takes up most of the book, even though the marriage covenant I think is a little bit more graphic and emotionally resonant. The second metaphor goes from chapters 4 to 14, and it's of parents and children, and how that's how the covenant between God and Israel is, and about the wayward child who keeps falling, like the one that keeps disappointing, the one that keeps screwing up, and how the parent just has to bring them back in. And so what's interesting is you have these great family metaphors that I think most people can relate to in some way.
Kind of country music kind of way.
Yeah. Right. Like, I hope no one has had the experience of having a prostitute spouse, but that idea of infidelity, even if you have not personally experienced it, you're familiar with it. So I think that's what to take from it. But there's also themes of journey and redemption in the journey, because in all of
redemption is the key theme in Hosea.
Yeah.
We focus always on this negative side, but the positive, he sort of descends and goes down that dark path to then bring us back up at the end, and that's what...
Love it.
Yeah.
And
Hosea is ultimately a hopeful, positive book.
I think it's a very hopeful book. Like, you see that things are going to go awry, but that everyone always comes back around, which is not going to be the case with all the prophets. And so you have this journey, and in that journey is repentance and reunion, which is lovely.